Bitcoin was like super low, and that's when like I got some money because like my business partner bought my shares.
Yep.
And he was like, yeah, you should invest in Bitcoin. I didn't know anything of it, right?
Yep.
But really, like, if I would have keep it, like, you know, we could always say that, but like, if I would have invest when he says like, yeah, you should just put like $1,000, whatever, right? Like,
yeah,
it would have been huge. It would have been huge.
Yeah.
But, you know, you don't know. And then like, it was a couple things like this, especially in investment.
Well,
like
you don't know, but you do know. You did know.
Yeah, no, exactly. But I didn't pay attention, right? Like I didn't.
Well, yeah.
So that's why, like, you know, I think like a couple of weeks ago I was talking about like, like coins again, like crypto, and I was like, I don't know anything, but like, let's just try it, you know? Like you never know, right? So.
Well, you don't have to know anything.
Yeah.
That's the whole point. All you got to do is read the energy in it.
Yeah.
Really. That's the truth about all this. Is it's all like, you know, the words that are said and you know, the tone of it, tone of voice and you know, and the hints and the synchronicity and all that kind of stuff. It's all energy. It's all energy that's just moving around.
Right.
You know, and we're more sensitive to it now because we're tuning in. You know, we're tuning into our own bodies, but we're also tuning in like together. That's what we do every morning. We tune into the energies together.
Yeah.
And it's not as we're not really consciously doing that, but it's happening. You know, it's kind of a subconscious intention behind it all. You know, with participation from the field of cosmic intelligence. I mean, the field wants this more for us than we do. It's kind of the long and short of it.
I started Lynn McTaggart's The Bond.
It's a book? The Bond?
Yeah. The Bond. Lynn McTaggart.
Right.
Oh, Lynn McTaggart. Is that her new book? Newest one?
No, 2010.
Oh, okay. So it's not that new. Okay.
No, it's not that new.
She's the one that does like Power of 8 or something, right? Power of 8?
Yeah, Power of 8. She's one of the first people to write a book about the unified field.
Yep. Intentions. She did the Intentional Project, which created that.
Power of 8. Yeah.
Power of 8.
Yeah. She's a really deep investigative journalist.
Yeah.
Like does deep research on things.
And wow.
Yeah.
It explains what we're doing.
Yeah.
Scientifically.
Yeah.
As she says, our nature, like she's uncovered, is to connect, not compete.
Yeah.
And so she was just, and I'm only in the beginnings, but it's providing backgrounds to the filters that we have. From Einstein to Darwin to the Renaissance, the Enlightenment, and the Industrial Revolutions.
Yeah. Is that you, Pascal?
What's that?
Is that you
About what?
making noise?
I don't know. What kind of noise?
It just sounds like machinery's going or something.
Oh no,
Like-
I just
like not
started
like a
that.
motor, but just scraping on something or whatever.
Oh, is it still doing it?
Nope.
Okay, I don't know. I have no idea. Oh, maybe like I was putting the earphone. Maybe.
Oh, could be.
Yeah. It's a mystery, but not
So
really.
what does
Yeah.
Lynn McTaggart have to say about bonding?
Hmm. A lot. But it's
Yeah. Well, that goes without saying.
Mhm.
the phenomenon of the observer observing.
Yeah.
And that there is nothing but the bond between. There's nothing but the bond between. A thing is not a thing. It's just the difference between it. And then you tie that to the observer observing it, which means the observer brings it into the existence.
Yeah.
To the single point.
Yeah. The observer gives it a location.
Mhm. Which means when we bring it in, we can bring anything in.
When we do what we do every day, we're trying to keep the energy dynamic. We're trying to keep it moving. We don't want it to collapse into form yet. We don't want the dynamic to turn static.
So we keep it at desire and intention.
We keep it in motion. We keep it busy. We allow it to be as busy as it wants to be.
Jesse, what made you choose this book?
I picked it up this time. Picked it off the bookshelf. I've had it for a while.
Oh, okay.
But I was like feminine energy.
Know what she says?
No, she
connection.
doesn't. She doesn't, but that's where I was working.
Yeah.
And FemMan, feminine man, yeah, is like the structure that I was in was what I was just observing for myself.
Yeah.
Chapter 2 is the superorganism.
Oh, wow. Isn't that interesting language?
Mhm. And early, just in the first 3 chapters or so that I'm in, a couple of parts, I don't know, pretty good into it, pretty dive into it.
Wow.
So much of, a theory wins out over time doesn't mean it is the right theory.
Yeah.
So survival of the fittest has been proven wrong. The slow evolution has been proven wrong. It is more that the cells, the blueprints, our bodies can adapt and respond and recreate to the environment.
Yeah. So evolution isn't about fitness at all. Then.
Mhm. No, it's not about, and it's not like competing. That's where she really starts. It's like we're connecting. It's a wholeness. It's not a lack or scarcity.
Yeah.
So it's like a whole, and so it fits in. It's like to the feminine for me appears to work with, accept, embody, allow wholeness, where my masculine energy comes from the competing, the fighting for the dominating, which is a Darwin result.
Yeah.
And then tie that to the Industrial Revolution, the steam engine, the electricity, the productivity, the assembly line.
Yeah. It's very primal animal energy.
And for me, the benefit is to know to observe both of them. And in reality, it's just one. It's just what I'm creating. I'm creating the duality of the polarity between them.
Yeah.
By observing the single point. When I observe the single point is a default choice. And so that's what I'm choosing to bring in without knowing it's the choice.
Yeah. We were talking about that a couple days ago about allowing those energies to combine.
Yeah. To blend.
I mean, that's basically what sex is. It's a combining of energies that creates something brand new.
Fascinating. I think, Craig, you shared the story of I think it was mold or bacteria, how they were using it to redesign subway systems.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
there was a similar study they did where they made a bacteria where it couldn't digest lactose.
Yeah. Yeah.
So they removed that capability of it and then surrounded it with lactose as its only food source.
Well, isn't that similar to the technology you have for oil field?
Concept is, yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Similar framework.
Very similar.
Or template.
Yeah, and it's in the from the thinking standpoint, meaning, oh, that shouldn't work that way.
Right. Yes, but actually it does, because it kind of has its own intelligence. And that's what freaked me out about the bacteria, is that it seems to have an intelligence. And an extremely brilliant intelligence on top of that. Like how do amoeba think like that? This is my big question. You know what I mean? Like, it's like
what they do is like, from what what they say is that it goes through all sorts of trials and errors until it finds one that works.
Yeah.
That's what our body does. And then it's blueprinted, it's remembered.
Yeah.
And passed on.
What's interesting is that's what machine learning is based on. Based on try all the permutations and combinations that are available and learn from that.
Yeah. And
so your database is this. Your database is this array of possibilities, and that's the field that you put it in a trial and error loop, and it tests every possibility on its own. That's why AI's going crazy right now. It's because it's not because AI is getting better. It's because the databases are getting better and bigger. And so it looks like AI is more accurate than it did a year ago.
Yeah. And we get fascinated when it comes up with something we couldn't.
Yeah, but I'm more fascinated not when a machine does that, but when an organism like bacteria does that.
Me too. Or when our cells do what the book is pointing to is that our cells will recreate designed on the environment.
Yeah.
And that was it's not the survival of the fittest, but it could look that way. It's the organisms that we are that are adapting.
Yeah. Well, and epigenetics has been suggesting for at least 30 years now that we have the capacity to control how all of our DNA expresses itself.
And not to, and that we don't need to either.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
That's what I mean from the where we can't control, where we can't. I think that's it. But where the environment, like if it's the air we're breathing, right, it'll readjust itself.
Yeah.
Recreates itself, which is a learning. It's a learning survival mechanism.
Yeah.
It's part of the whole system.
Yeah. But on top of that, it can be conscious and intentional.
Yep. I don't want to take away from that. I don't want to take away the power of that.
Yeah. thing is, all that's been working unconsciously anyway.
Yes. Yeah. Now we haven't been helping it by the filters of reducing everything to its smallest point rather than observing the whole system.
Yeah.
Admiring the whole capability. Like we spoke yesterday, like we're unaware of the filters that we put around ourselves.
Right. Well, and the scientific process is like that, is that you first create a hypothesis. Well, if you do that with everything, you're going to miss a hell of a lot.
Yes, well, that hypothesis is what you're going to observe.
Yeah, but you're predetermining what you're going to observe.
So the observer is observing what it wants to see.
Well, right, exactly. and that's why that's faulty.
Mhm.
That whole system is faulty because you miss everything.
Yeah, it's limiting.
Yeah. That's why describing the end result instead of feeling it doesn't really work.
Mhm. And I also find that when I describe it or like begin to put words to it, I can feel it even deeper.
Yeah.
I can experience it at a deeper level, which to me is the just verifies the wholeness, the cycle, the combining of the two. It's not just one or the other. Now, the fact that we're not good at it is a whole nother thing.
Yeah.
And that's what I find fascinating about this first part of the book is she breaks down why it diverged. And when the divergence started, it wasn't that intent. It wasn't the creators, that the people that created the theory, like Darwin, he didn't give it that survival of the fittest, the competition, the fight side of it. He didn't have that in there.
Right. Somebody interpreted it that way.
Yep.
Yeah. And that interpretation took over.
Well, and then it blended with Adam Smith, the invisible hand, supply and demand. And those emerged with a new energy. Like not, and in the way that it had to go.
Right. The scarcity energy of economics.
Yeah.
We live in exciting times. Wow.
Yeah. No kidding.
And that's her point of the book is how to live a life the way we're meant to be.
Yeah. By challenging the predominant conclusions that our lives have been based on.
That's right. Or for us to challenge what we've based our life on. so that we can all sit there and say, I love what we do here. And that's why. It's because we're observing what's in this. We're observing what's in this space, what's possible, the potential, which is what's in the bond.
Yeah.
Which I'd call it. I think what we're getting to is that it's the field.
Yes. Yeah. And the bond or the connection between particles is part of the formation, part of the bringing into form.
Yeah. And so, like, that's what we now. If you're already observing the way that it's supposed to be, which is based on your past outcomes,
or your hypothesis,
or the way that it's got to be, you won't see anything different. You won't observe anything different.
Yeah, because you're not looking for it.
That's right. Which is fine until the information that you're using, causes you to be miserable.
And that's a choice.
Yeah, because it conflicts with what you believe, right? Which would cause you misery. Something's wrong here. Something's dissonant. There's dissonance here. Something's out of tune.
Yep. Dissonance in the bond. Dissonance between two things. That dissonance we don't like.
Well, it's uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm. Because then we avoid it, so distract ourselves.
Like I said, when you're tuning your piano, the closer you get in tune, the more you can hear the dissonance. So it gets more annoying when it's close to being in tune.
Mm-hmm.
Which actually makes it a lot easier to tune it.
Mm-hmm.
Because the contrast is more obvious.
Right. Which then says you should tune more often, because it's really allowed this in the early parts of falling out of tune. Yeah, is when it's really observable.
Yep.
Which is what we practice together, and then take it through our day.
I was watching I think it was a TikTok or Reel video.
Yeah.
About a pineal gland that it used to be the size of a ping pong ball, and now it's a pea size. Can you imagine, like it's just the beginning, like how psychic we can be.
Yeah, what happens to your muscles when you don't use them?
Yeah. Yeah, atrophy, right?
They become atrophy, and yeah, exactly. And it's like, okay.
Well, I really enjoy this theory because it is a theory. Is as Homo sapiens or whatever version of us we want to call it came out of the trees, right, and started moving across the prairies, we could have been eating these mushrooms off the animal dung. Yeah, hallucinations. Yeah.
Yeah,
And that is an explanation of why our brain grew so big.
that's interesting.
Right? Huh. Yeah.
Yeah, I tend to believe that that might have been one of the factors, but I'm sure that there's a lot more factors than that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it could have even been a preponderance of solar flares, and I mean, all kinds of different things like that.
That's the part of, and I'm in the book now. I figured you would like that there's pattern studiers, right? It's actually a thing.
Yeah.
Should have known. It's like, of course, but they tied all big things to the solar flare cycles.
Yeah.
It was new for me.
Yeah.
Like wars and like all sorts of things.
Yeah, and on the other hand, if you look at the energetic of the planets, the planet Pluto moves extremely slow. Like it takes about 250 years to go all the way around the mandala, and so its energies are generational. You look at approximately 20 years in each zodiac sign. And so it's like it's more its energy is more thematic because it affects everybody that's the same age.
And no doubt in the 96% we don't understand.
Oh yeah, exactly. So those energies kind of run at a real subconscious level. But they create great effects.
And we may point those effects at something else.
Well, yeah. But it's interesting the parallels that are coming out. As in the transition, like 250 years ago, the transition that's happening now is Pluto's going from Capricorn into Aquarius. In fact, it just dipped into Aquarius about a month and a half ago, and it's in retrograde now. It's going back to Capricorn for a while, for another couple of years, but we're just getting a taste of that. What's very interesting is 250 years ago, there was a lot of revolutions going on. There was the American Revolution, there was French Revolution, there was what else was there? Anyways, there was a number of things like that, like overthrowing monarchies and authoritarian rules and all those kind of things. And it's very interesting that same energy is prevailing kind of underneath, kind of prevailing in the background right now, where people really want autonomy. People really want self-governance instead of oppression. So it's kind of happening all over again. It's come full circle.
Yeah, it is. It's fascinating.
So yeah, I'm pretty sure the size of the pituitary or the pineal gland
Pineal gland, yeah.
has a lot to do with, well, the pituitary is tied to those things too. So but I'm pretty sure that like the relative size of those and its effectiveness in our bodies has a lot to do with all the energies that are out there, but it also has a lot to do with the frequencies that we choose to maintain in our own bodies. Like as we learn and practice high frequency or higher frequency, we'll have more and more control over those things.
Yeah, so it's almost like it just open, or like it's the size that the body can handle right now.
Yeah.
Right? Because like if you raise your frequency too fast, then it will blow, right? Like it's just too much, right? Too much current. It's not a good thing either, right? So
well, your body's not ready to just jump to light speed in the flick of a switch.
Yeah. Exactly.
Like that. It's like all this recalibrating that I've been talking about the last few months. I mean, and part of it's intentional, but and conscious, but most of it is unconscious or happening outside of my awareness. But I know it's happening.
Yeah, it's some people that have been noticed, like, that they got an upgrade on their heart and stuff, and to handle like higher frequency.
Yeah, to me it's an upgrade on everything.
Yeah, and then like when I had my reading, that was kind of interesting. They say like they were, so the Arcturian, they were putting a sort of a net over my head. Yeah. So I was like, okay, anything else you want to put on?
Yeah, that's fascinating.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Yep. They were like, yeah, they want to put like sort of protection. No, I'm not too sure.
Yeah.
Like over your head. So I'm like, yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
You desire to raise your frequency.
Yeah.
So they're helping you do exactly that.
Right. Yeah, if it doesn't show my desire and intention, I don't know what will. Right? Like, every day, that's all I do. Right.
Yeah, what's interesting.
Either I'm with this call or like I'm
It happens
Yeah.
at a really
Like,
irrational level.
Yesterday I was, well, I think 2 days ago was, yeah. But everything I listen, it's like near death experience, like what's on the other side, frequency, like quantum, like you name it, right? So
Mhm.
I'm devouring this stuff. It's just, you know, because I always think like, oh, there's more, oh, there's more, you know.
Yeah.
And I stay open to that information, or, you know.
Yeah. And why would we want to be so fixed,
Yeah.
so permanent, so right? Why would we want to be so right?
Yeah, we're designed to be expanding forever. Like that's the default.
Control of the uncontrollable. I mean, ugh.
Yeah, when you try to control it, it's just arrested development. You know, all you can do is slow it down or impede it.
Keep learning the same lesson again and again. That sounds amazing.
Yeah, it's like eating the same meal. Like you choose one meal and you eat that for the rest of your life.
And it makes you sick. Yeah,
Yeah.
you still eat it.
Yeah, and besides that, it bores you to death.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, ugh.
Yeah, I'm saying that because like I know a friend of mine that he goes to work and then he's got 2 sandwiches every day, and they're both like peanut butter and honey. That's how he eats, and 2 Pepsi or 2 Coke or something. That's it. Like he's been eating this for probably like, I don't know, 25 years, 30 years maybe. Yeah.
Since he was a teenager.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, his body knows what to expect, that's for sure. You know?
Yep. Variety
have
is
to
not
guess.
his thing.
What's that?
Variety is not his thing.
No, no. Yeah. So how do we connect to the field at ease or at will?
Step in innocence.
No thoughts.
Just nothing but play.
Yeah.
Well, let me ask you, are you working in the field?
How do I work in the field?
Are you?
Oh, how are you? I'd say sometime. You know, there's sometimes I feel I'm really kind of in the flow, and I don't need to think about what I'm going to be saying. So I'm thinking that's what it is.
Great question.
Yeah, it is a good
Yeah.
question. To me, there isn't any work there. There's a hell of a lot of energy. There's a lot of play. And there's a lot of things like joy and curiosity. And openness.
So it may be just something is we only notice when we're not in it.
Yeah. Yeah, if it feels like work, you kind of know you're not in flow, right?
Yeah. Or it feels frustrating. Just information, it's that dissonance, it's out of alignment, out of attunement. And it doesn't mean we know what to do about it. The most obvious would be to ask it.
Yeah, because there's definitely like degrees to it, you know?
Mhm.
Mhm.
Because like there's one, you know, I had a webinar on Sunday. I know, Saturday. And this lady, because we had this exercise of like go to beach, forest, you know, a place that you love, and then like create at will.
Mhm.
And when you're there, just don't stop. And then this lady, she was like, yeah, I love the beach a lot. And then she was walking in the sand, and then like she said she turns as like a grain of sand. And I was like, wow, really? And then she was like, yeah, I could put myself as water or sand or a tree or whatever. And I'm like, whoa, yeah, I haven't been there yet. Right? So
like
she
fun.
was like, yeah, she was transforming herself like as any energy around her.
Yeah.
So, and then that's what he was like. He was like, yeah, that's self-mastery
Well, that's at will, right?
at will. Yeah. So that was fascinating. I was just like, whoa. But in the same time, it was almost like, wow, these people are just like they're a different level, you know, and like, you know, there's so much growth that can still happen, right? It's just like, yeah, so that's what I was saying. Like, there's so many degrees to how connected you are to the field, right? You can become just a particle. And so,
Well, the thing is, you can approach it different ways too. Like what Chris Duncan teaches people to do is to go into the field looking for specific information.
right.
Okay. What we're doing is we're going into the field on an exploratory mission to see what the field wants to give us. So we go in with an attitude of openness and receptivity, and we're willing to hear whatever it wants to give up.
Yeah.
To me, that's a lot more fun.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah. Yeah, it's like playing in the
You never know what
sandbox.
you're going to get.
Yeah. Yeah, it's almost like playing in the sandbox, but you only have a shovel, right?
Yeah.
You don't have anything else. You just have a shovel.
Yep.
And what you're looking in the field, it's like how you can dig your hole.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? So it's like, it's very limited. Yeah.
Yep. Yep.
So Pascal, as you observed other people, was it that concept never existed for you, that potential, or was it?
Yeah, I never, yeah. I'm like, I'm not even close to that, you know? But I had experienced other things though, like through breath work, like that. I'm so expanded. Like, I feel like I'm like the size of the room that I'm in. And that's like, it happens probably like 3 times so far. And when I get there, I'm like, holy shit, like, I just want to stay there. You know, it's so blissful. It's
So why
free.
don't you combine the two?
Yeah, but that's it. Yeah.
You know? Like, instead of just working with innocence, use your breath work and just be really, really like allow the breath work to open you up into a totally different dimension, and then play around the field and see what comes up. Holy shit.
Yeah. Well, I'm kind of doing that, right? Like, so I'm doing the breath work and then I do a meditation. And I'm kind of just observing, right? And usually, like, it's more like biogeometry form, right? So that's what I see.
Yeah. What I've been doing in the morning is I set an alarm for about 20 minutes before these sessions. And then what I do is I really cultivate that theta brain state before I actually log in to the call.
Oh, yeah.
Because I want to leverage what's already going on. It's very, historically, it's very unusual for me to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
But I've been doing it for the last 180 days because I'm leveraging that natural theta state, like just after I wake up. And that makes these sessions a lot more valuable to me.
Yeah, it's easier to take it into your day, right?
Yeah, yeah. And that's
'Cause
part of
then
the reason why I sleep more often during the day as well. It's because I like getting a theta wave recharge.
Oh yeah.
This is going to be interesting to you, Jesse, because after we left the session yesterday, I got my Bible out and started reading some chunks of scripture, right? And I was looking at the last couple chapters of Deuteronomy, where God says to the nation, I set before you the choice between life and death, and I encourage you to choose life. And the transition in leadership between Moses and Joshua. This is before they crossed River Jordan into the Promised Land. Very interesting stuff in that. Very interesting patterns and concepts.
Would you like to practice? Share it?
Well, it's interesting when you have new eyes and a new perspective. It's really amazing what pops out at you.
Mm.
You know,
Mm-hmm.
like I'm sure I've read that passage probably at least 50 times in my life, but it was very different this time.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting. I never read the Bible. Not entirely, like at school a little bit here and there, but
Yeah.
Never.
Yeah, I've read it cover to cover probably 15 times.
Wow.
Yeah, and memorized huge chunks of it in different ways. But that's one of those background things, right?
Right.
So it's interesting how different scriptures pop out to me, like as I'm in this space, like with you guys. It's like I'll just get a quote that pops in, and it's just like, oh my goodness, it's in there. I can't tell you exactly where it is, but I know it's a quote. I know it's in the scripture.
Right.
And I was attracted to the energy of it. So anyways, when I was looking at this stuff yesterday, what's very interesting is I could see the majority of it, the majority of that part of the Bible, the last chapters of Deuteronomy, the majority of that is really dark and heavy energy. but there's the odd thing that pops out. It's like, holy crap, is that ever enlightening? It's like, the odd verse pops out and it's just like, yeah, because it talks about, there's things that talk about like destruction, and God will send on you like curses and confusion and all that kind of stuff, like very, very dark energy stuff. But on the other hand, there's things like, well, here we go. Chapter 29 of Deuteronomy, verse 4, it says, "Yet to this day, the Lord has not given you a heart to know, nor eyes to see, nor ears to hear." And then later on, it says that God was holding this back from you so that you may enter into a new covenant with him, or a new agreement with him. So there's this intentional holding back of enlightenment, so that at the correct time you will be prepared to enter into something new. It just things like that. It's very interesting. And then here's chapter 30. It says, and so when all of these things come to pass, I, the Lord your God, will restore you from captivity and have compassion on you, and will gather you again from all the peoples where you have been scattered. And I will bring you back. I will gather you from there, and I will take you back into the promise that I gave you. And I will prosper you and multiply you more than your ancestors. Like, holy crap. So there's this divine intention process that's going on in the background. It has a lot to do with timing, and a lot to do with attitudes of people, and a readiness to receive what has been promised. Because if you're not ready to receive what's been promised, then you're not gonna take it. You're not gonna receive it. So anyway, that's just an example. And in chapter 31, it's talking about them going into the promised land. And right at the beginning of that chapter, it says, "And I, the Lord, will deliver all of your enemies up before you." And basically, he's saying, look, I'm going to go in before you. I'm going to do all the heavy lifting, and all you got to do is walk into it. All you got to do is step into it. You don't have to fight anybody. You don't have to do any of that stuff. I got your back. I'm setting up. I'm basically setting down a golden highway for you. I mean, it's like he's doing all the destruction. And we get to do all the creation. We get to create the nation we want, or we get to create the world we want. So anyway, I saw a lot of parallels with what's going on in the world today in that little story. And the energies of it. And it's kind of like a recurring pattern.
Yes, it is.
It's actually quite conveniently documented for us. If you can see through all the dark energy as it's recorded.
Yeah, it's like they're setting up a lot of potholes, but are you gonna go in them or like you're gonna go around them? Yeah, so you're gonna follow that dark energy or go towards the light, right?
Yeah. Yeah, because there's a lot of if-then language in that. If you do this, then God will do this. If you do this, then God will do this. But it's, you know, that's very binary language. Either or, if then. Conditional language. Conditioning language.
Mona.
Good morning.
Morning, Mona.
Good, Mona.
I've been listening in.
Hey, Mona.
Hey, good morning. Sounds like you're having a pretty heavy discussion.
Yeah, I was dissecting the last few chapters of Deuteronomy. With new eyes.
I noticed that the Bible has changed its tone from the first section to the last section with the new
Oh, yeah.
covenant.
Oh yeah, big time. But there's still a lot of leftovers in the new section.
What do you mean by that?
Well, I was talking about there being a lot of dark energy in Deuteronomy. Dark energy in the language.
Where did you find the dark energy at?
Oh, it's all over the place. It's about well, you just mentioned it yourself, that there's a real difference between the Old Testament and the New Testament and how it's written. There's tons of oppressive and constrictive and conditional energy in the Old Testament.
Do you think it's because of the way it was translated or the way it was originally done in Aramaic?
I think it's both. Because you gotta remember, the first 5 books are attributed to Moses. And Moses was educated in the Egyptian system. So that lens would have had a lot of impact on a lot of influence on how he saw God and described God to the people.
Well, the Egyptians had a lot of different gods for different things.
Well, yeah.
And when you read the Bible has one true God.
Well, yeah.
Who
You know, I sense from reading the Old Testament, like especially the books of Moses, I sense that there's kind of a frustration about the ability to language it.
I think he was also combating generational stuff too.
Oh yeah.
So he kind of had a tall order to fill.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No kidding. And he also had
because they never did get out of the mentality of being a slave to another
right
group of people.
Right. And there's
there's
this prevailing theme about the way to get out of slavery is to force yourself out of it. You know, by threats and warnings and imperatives. You know.
What do you mean by threats and imperatives?
Well, they're written in. It, like, that's part of the language. It's if you do this, you know, it's like putting these words in God's mouth. If you do this, then I will do this. You know, it's adversarial language or conditional language.
A lot of those books in the Bible also allude to Jesus's portion that was coming up. They were
Yes,
predicting the
they do.
future.
Yep. It's kind of like we're stuck in this mode, and we don't know how to get out of it. And even if we did know how to get out of it, we're not prepared to accept that to get out of it. Like, for example, before the 10 Commandments were given, God comes to Moses and he says, you've seen what I did to the Egyptians and how I got you out of there, out of Egypt in eagle's wings, and brought you to myself. And he says, what I want to do with the people of Israel is I want to make them to be a kingdom of priests and a holy nation. And so Moses goes and tells the people that. He says, spend the next 3 days preparing yourselves to be made a kingdom of priests and a holy nation. And so everybody prepares for 3 days, and then Moses comes down after 3 days. He brought the people out of the camp to meet God at the foot of the mountain after 3 days. And he says to the people, all of you who want to be a kingdom of priests and a holy nation, and nobody stepped forward. And Moses got pissed off. So he goes up the mountain and he comes back with the 10 Commandments.
And he also broke the first set of tabs.
Well, it's because, but the thing is, God presented to them plan A. There weren't any takers. And so the 10 Commandments were plan B. And by the time he got down the mountain with plan B, they had made a golden calf and were dancing around like you know, they weren't prepared for what was coming, for the promise that was given to them, or for the intention that God had. Like, it's very interesting story.
Why weren't they prepared though? Because they were looking for something.
Well, they made a choice. They chose no.
Vision.
They chose no. We don't want to be that.
They never had that example set for them.
Well, I don't know if it was a lack of an example or whatever, but they said no. Or better side of it, nobody said yes.
Well, as we've learned, they didn't have a pattern. They just had somebody that helped them get out of a really bad place, and they were still stuck there. Even though they moved physically, they mentally and in their heart were not able to make that transition as fast as what God wanted.
Well, yeah, they weren't prepared to make a yes choice.
No, they weren't.
It probably scared the bejeebies out of them, to be honest.
So for Moses to be really upset about that, because he had to seek God every single day because of the challenges that he was dealing with.
Yeah.
And he had to keep providing miracle after miracle after miracle so that these people would believe on a regular basis. They still had to see something in person.
Yeah.
No.
But the story actually says that God came down in person.
When people to operate in creative tension.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they were not prepared for that.
Nope. I mean, that's partly, it reminds me that this is happening to a lot of people today. It's like we're scared of our own latent power. You know, we're scared to find out how powerful we are.
Some people don't even know they have that power.
Oh, hardly anybody knows they have that power. I mean, people are scared to even explore the possibility of it.
Why would that be, do you think? Because they might have to show up?
That's part of it, probably.
And I'd even say those of us, I speak for myself, think I'm powerful. Don't believe it as fully as it's probably capable of.
Yeah.
You know, I'll speak to us in that way.
Well, and a lot of us attempted when we were very young to actually exercise those capabilities, and it probably scared people. It probably scared authorities. Like that's parents and teachers and caregivers. And you know, and it might have scared us too.
Mm-hmm.
Because it didn't match the things we were seeing demonstrated around us in our environment.
Do you think we have conditions in the new covenant?
Nope.
Do you think God loved us without condition the whole time?
I know that. Yeah.
How is that represented to you?
What do you mean? How is that represented?
Well, you say that you know that God has unconditional love, and when you compare the old to the new, do you see it in both sides of that?
Compared the old to the new what?
Testament.
Oh.
Or do you think his love was conditional in the Old Testament?
No, there's unconditional language in both the Old and the New Testaments. In fact, that was what I was suggesting when we opened up this exploration. I was looking at the last few chapters of Deuteronomy, and I said there was a number of verses and concepts that really jumped out at me because they were unconditional.
I see.
And they're but they're kind of a small percentage compared with the conditional language that's in the same place.
So the conditional language is a lot, takes up more of that chapter than the unconditional language?
Correct. Yeah. It's about it's between the unconditional language is about 10 to 15%. So already there's kind of a bias, right?
Well, people tend to gravitate towards the negative way sooner than they do the positive. So that explains why the Bible is interpreted a lot the way it is, in a negative tone.
Yeah. Well, I've sat through a lot of sermons in my life, and I bet, and I would say about 10% of them were uplifting and unconditional, and probably 90% of them were very dark and oppressive. Which kind of reflects the same ratio that I'm talking about.
Have you found anybody that speaks in unconditional terms all the time?
No, it's very difficult, because even if you look at the English language, about 90% of the English language is open and expansive and inclusive, and about 90% of it is binary, linear, rational, either or. I mean, that's just the language.
Do you consider the English language a love language?
Parts of it are. But I know that's part of the reason why a new languaging is emerging. Like I would call it quantum language, and the world of science right now is struggling to find a new language for all this stuff that's being discovered, because the new stuff that's been discovered is unconditional. Like it's wide open. It's wide open and abstract and conceptual, and it's extremely difficult to language that stuff.
Well, I think Mo Gadwat, he speaks to it between the Arabic and the English. Call it Eastern Western.
Yep.
And he says there's 500 different words to describe a lion.
A lion.
A lion.
Yeah.
And we have one, and then we'll put adjectives towards it.
Yeah. Well,
I
again,
think And they say, you know, it's like it is sort of learn the 500 words around different, and you know, I think a lot of the indigenous people too, very similar.
Yes, yes. Yeah.
I don't know that, but I would assume. And so I think that's just in that is this demonstration of the wholeness versus our pointing to one thing, which is what
Yeah.
the English language does.
Yeah. You know the Eskimos, and I'm using that term loosely because they're actually the indigenous Inuit, but anyway, they have 50 different words for snow.
Hmm. Yeah.
Which kind of makes sense because that's very true. When you consider that every snowflake is different.
And every depending on what you're going to do, those different snows matter.
Yeah. Yeah. You have to have a certain kind of snow to make an igloo.
Mm-hmm. Certain type of snow to travel.
Yeah. Yeah. Certain kind needs snowshoes and another kind doesn't.
Mm-hmm. And that's it's like the language itself is a limit.
Yes. That's why it's so powerful to keep things nonverbal.
Well, I don't know how to, I understand the importance of that, but I also understand the importance of the observer observing.
So what does that have to do with languaging?
That is what brings it into existence, brings something into existence. And only when something is brought into existence does the relationship, we'll call it the bond here, right? The field exist. Even though it's always there, it's the something from everything.
Yeah, but it's in existence long before it's language.
Yes. But it may not be in your existence or my existence or in my awareness. And I believe like that is where creation, like that is how creation happens. By giving it a form and in language, giving it, tying words to it, like bringing it into existence. Like all the potential right into one point. I say we're doing that all the time. Because creation doesn't care if it's positive or negative. So we look at the energy, the charge of that we're creating in our life, and that is what we're bringing in all the time. So that's what I say, or that's why I think the importance of distinguishing something is important. Why else would we be together? Why would it be collective? Why would it matter? You know, it's like Pascal's story that that wasn't even possible in his thinking until he heard someone else say it. the co-creation. It's like, I don't know how else co-creation would work. Doesn't mean that it couldn't. We'd have to give it some sort of form. I mean, even for us to say, well, it's like one of the first places for us to be for the field, we call it our intuition, is to be in play. Like that is to pull something out of nothing. Because it wasn't there before for us before the conversation. Just before that moment of now. And it goes back to, I think, Mona, is what you were speaking about, and what we know is like we have patterns, right? We have ways, we have filters in which we're supposed to do this with people that are probably very ineffective, that don't work very well. And those filters, those ways of being, have us prevent us, limit us from exploring. And even in that exploring, we've got to, at this point in time, we've got to like put it, observe it, and bring it into the existence so that we can see the difference. Become aware.
So what exactly is being observed?
Something, nothing, and everything. And the observe is to pull something from there. So that becomes the something. Yeah, better is like, where does that come from? Might be a better question to start with.
Just there.
But it
Everywhere.
wasn't there, but it wasn't there before, was it?
Sure it was. It was always there. It's always been there.
Great. And so what is there?
Energy.
So you had to put something on,
What do you mean had to put something on it?
had to label it.
No, didn't have to label it.
You don't have to. agree. You don't have to.
But I used I used that word to inform you as to what's there.
And I think it comes to the very similar, I've heard the saying before, is that if God is everything, as soon as we say that's God, then it's not God. And that it is, because it's everything. It's everywhere and it's nothing. I think it's, I mean, it all comes to the, what's the point of communication? What's the point of language? What is the purpose?
Energy transfer.
Coordination.
I would say
Cooperation.
communication and understanding.
I mean, it's fascinating to think like, why did that evolve? There had to have been a need for it.
Pictures weren't working.
Right.
No offense intended on that, but to add a little lightness to it.
I have seen the cartoons with the little language clouds.
Yeah.
You see a bunch of hieroglyphics in the language clouds.
Yeah, and so yeah, it's symbols, you know, are just letters anyway that create words and sentences and structures, you know, and
Yeah.
it's like, and then it's like even fascinating before that is what existed before that.
Yeah.
I think the thing that existed before that, and I don't know, this kind of is a stretch a little bit. I've been watching a lot of National Geographic, and they talk about having otherworldly knowledge imparted to us as a human race. And they talk about different symbols and things like that, and they're still trying to work it out, even with the stuff that's more present than the old stuff. They seem to feel that there was supernatural language and supernatural people that were here, or beings that were here, that helped to teach us some of what we know. And as civilizations died out, so did the information with them. I don't know if we weren't prepared to keep evolving with that information, or how that worked out. Sometimes I feel like we're a big science experiment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We know that about 85% of our DNA, science is not aware of what it's for, what that part of our DNA is for. And I've heard suggestions and hints that it's multi-dimensionality that's actually built in to the human being that we just haven't had access to or awareness of. It's unrealized capability.
Because I think people are too focused on the 3D reality.
Yeah, yeah.
Of having to see and having to know, which is where we go back to. They need to know.
Yeah, because the 15% we know about gives us things like eye color and whether you have hair in your nose and you know what size your feet are. Those kinds of things.
Gentlemen, this has been an extremely enlightening conversation this morning.
Glad you had fun, Mona.
Yeah, thanks for
I always
jumping in
do.
and playing.
Yeah. Thank you for playing. Say again.
I've always wanted to. I did something interesting.
Yeah, we're losing your voice, Mona.
A tandem jump this weekend.
Say again.
I did a tandem jump.
Skydive.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
and it
Put a
was
little
so
wind in
neat.
your sails, huh?
Something like that. It was kind of neat. I felt very at home being in midair, though.
Cool.
It was very quiet, and you could just see for miles. And yeah,
Yeah, great. Your first jump?
yep. Probably won't
Yep.
be my last.
Yeah. You caught the disease. Good for you. Really proud of you.
Thank you. I like being in the airplanes and I like heights. So it really was not a scary thing. And I was kind of shaky whenever I got to the ground, but I didn't feel this big adrenaline rush that people talk about. It was like, it was just natural for me to be there.
Awesome. Yeah. Does that mean you're part bird?
I don't know what that means. It means I found my comfort zone about a mile up.
You might be an air sign.
Oh,
Yeah, that's so awesome. Yeah, thanks again for coming and playing today.
thank you.
Yeah. Bye, Mona.
Thanks, Jesse, for having this space. I will
Yeah,
talk to y'all later.
Great.
Big love, Mona.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Big love to y'all.
Yeah,
So,
I'm complete too, so I'm gonna check out.
great. Me too. All right, guys. Well, have a wonderful rest of the day.
Yep. You all too. Big love, everybody.
Yeah, sounds good.
Yeah, you too, guys. Take
Thanks.
care.